The concept that I'm looking at is heteronormativity. Heteronormativity comes from the ideas that we have clearly defined gender and gender roles that are complementary to each other, so a man and a woman are complementary. It is also based on the assumption that heterosexuality, which is one gender attracted to the opposite gender, is the only normal sexuality. This is put really nicely in the magazine Everyday Feminism by Chris Nelson, where she says heteronormativity is the normalization of behaviour and societal expectations that are tied to the presumption of heterosexuality. Heteronormativity in society is where heterosexual relationships and heterosexual ideas are society's default. It's the norm and what we automatically assume. When you see a child lost, you would often ask, "Where's your mum and dad?" Not even thinking that they could have two dads or two mums. Or the assumption that it is the role of the man to ask out a woman. These assumptions are examples of heteronormativity. As John Fiske says in the Week 4 readings, heteronormativity is a socially produced normality because we are so used to seeing and being presented with male and female relationships. It can also be seen in media with advertising, cinema, and TV, with the majority representation of heterosexual relationships, and when homosexuals are represented, it can often be very stereotypical. As Mark McLennan says in his paper, Inside Out, Queer Theory and Popular Culture, homosexuals are reduced to this image of a weak feminine man and a butch female. As well as this, McLennan points out that mainstream media often avoids intimate interactions between homosexual couples, whereas this is not at all the case with heterosexual couples. Again, this is showing how society normalizes heterosexual relationships and still feels uncomfortable and cautious about seeing homosexual couples. An example of heteronormativity in pop culture is in Disney. I've chosen this example because Disney movies are usually watched mainly by children. Therefore, in these movies, where the prince falls for the princess, there are only representations of heterosexual relationships, portraying the idea that male-female relationships are the only normal ones. The journalist Hugh Lodge wrote in the Guardian newspaper about Disney movies and how typically they depict an all-healing property of straight love. This gives the illusion to people and young children that only straight love can fulfill you. This is seen in many of the Disney movies I grew up with. Take Sleeping Beauty as an example, where the kiss of her prince is the only one that can wake her up. As well as this, The Princess and the Frog, where the prince turns into a frog and can only be re-emerged as a handsome prince after the kiss of his princess. In Lodge's article, he also mentions Disney animation has a long history of LGBT coding. To me, the way he says coding is exactly right. Homosexuality has been slipped into Disney, but is never often explicitly clear and is never the main romantic relationship, as they are treading lightly because of our heteronormative society. However, things are changing, using LaFleur as the first openly gay character in the new Beauty and the Beast. Because of the small representation of homosexual relationships in films such as Disney that people grow up watching, it is a part of the reason why people wrestle with their sexuality, because heteronormativity in our society leads them to believe that being gay isn't normal. Hopefully this will not always be the case. It appears that change will be a generational thing, as more explicitly gay and transgender relationships are portrayed in literature, films, and the broader media. Children will grow up with a mixture of role models for sexuality, and this will be perceived as normal. This will take a considerable amount of time though. Thank you for listening.